Hi, this is Abhinav. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Peoplebox.ai.
एक मिनट रुक जाओ, रेडी होने दो. चलो ये कर लेते हैं. This could be a great intro.
Any founder of a hypergrowth startup will list people as their biggest asset and challenge. For companies that have achieved product market fit, money is no longer a constraint to growth. Rather, it is people, and the best startups are the ones who excel in hiring, retaining, and getting great outcomes from their employees. Google has long been seen as the pioneer in managing people, and Google's practices are widely studied and adopted by other startups. One of them is an approach called OKR, or Objectives and Key Results, which is taking the startup world by storm. And Abhinav Chugh's venture, Peoplebox, is a platform that helps fast-growing companies to adopt the OKR methodology. This episode is a masterclass in both OKRs and building a vertical SaaS business, and there's no one better than Abhinav to hear it from. Abhinav is an IIT Delhi alumnus and a serial entrepreneur, and here he's telling Akshay about how it all started.
So I spent a couple of years in Hamdocs in Pune, went to a lot of places, traveled a lot. I was in Canada, I would be in London. And then I got a couple of opportunities actually to relocate, primarily to two places, London and Dublin. Like any Indian guy, you give them London and Dublin. Of course, London would be the obvious choice. And so was it for me as well. I remember my boss, she got another opportunity in Dublin. And she said to me, "Yeah, Abhinav, I want you to move to Dublin." I said, "Okay, for how long?" She said, "No, it's at least a couple of years." And my first question was, "Where is Dublin?" And she was like, "Okay, it's the capital of Ireland." She sent me for a couple of weeks and I literally fall in love with that place. My exact plan was I'm going to spend a couple of years, quit my job and start my business. So for us to go and even know a little bit, we need to have some knowledge. So what we did was, what we decided I did was that let's go to a B school. While I was doing my B school, continued to code my first startup and launched it while I was in B school. So one thing I realized was that there is a lot of mistrust. Like everybody wanted to source their products from Eastern Europe or China and wanted to source their services from India. So my first idea was about building this B2B trust portal where there will be suppliers and they would be able to add their customer references, testimonials, and all that. When we talk about trust, that how do I go and trust you? There are different levels, and the best level is audio-visual. Long story short, pivoted my first startup, which was Wavies, into VideoCrisp, which was all about a cloud-based video. This will be a cloud-based video editing and creation tool. So 2014, moved back to India. And this time, I remember the flight when I was alone. I was there, my wife and my son. In January 2017, I quit Practo and started it. So, but once I moved back, joined Practo, and Practo is, I think, one of the most fascinating journey that I had. But yeah, that was my journey, 8 years in Ireland.
So becoming a founder, tell me about that transition.
So like I said, this was a promise to myself. So I met my co-founder, and maybe we'll spend a little bit about him. So my co-founder is Alabu. He's engineer. We both are mechanical engineers. He's from NIT Trichy. Mechanical engineer who got into Yahoo. In fact, he's only the first mechanical engineer who got placed into Yahoo. Then he was one of the founding engineers with HackerRank. And that's where he came to know about YC. So he and two of his other co-founders started a startup called MarkupWed, which was only the third startup in India to get into YC. And so while I was doing my startup in Dublin, he was doing his startup in Bay Area. And this was a startup. There were 3 front-end guys solving a real problem of front-end engineers. They were trying to help the front-end engineer convert their HTML into PSD, which was a big pain then. I don't know if it is still a big pain now, but now you have a lot of other tools have come. And I think Alagu, from, of course, my interaction with the same problem, that like not realizing who are the people or what segment the whole GTM place where they struggle. And then he joined Practo pretty much at the same time. In fact, we joined within the matter of 30 days. Now, our first startup, like immediately when we moved out of Practo, another sort of, I would say, a good lesson and a mistake. So we were doing in health. Of course, we were in health and we wanted to do something in health, but not something which directly competes with Practo. And the one place where we saw while we were there was mental health. Okay, that mental health is completely broken. Now, I had, of course, come from Dublin and I had seen people going through counseling, people talking about mental health so openly. And then when I came back to India, I was like, dude, this is people are really scared. There is a huge stigma. And we really believe that technology can solve a lot of this stigma problem. Because one is it gives you the convenience of finding a counselor. It's so easy to go to your neighbor and say, do you know any pediatrician or any eye specialist? But it's who would go to a neighbor and say, yeah, do you know any good marriage counselor or do you know any psychiatrist? So we thought one was convenient, or you can say the discovery part. But the second was this whole aura of anonymity that you can do in technology, because you don't really need to go there. You don't really need to go and sit. So that is what we started. We started a startup called Ask Mile, it was into mental health, the ability to talk with counselors. And there, I would, again, a very big lesson. And again, this is a lesson I know they've been taught so many times, but you keep on making that mistakes. And my life have been somewhat about repeating some of the mistakes as well. When we did that, of course, we were two, I would say, good pedigree founders, IIT, ex-YC, ex-Practo. So there would not be any VC who would not talk with us. They would, in fact, welcome us with open hands. And of course, Practo was very hot, so they would go good references about SFL. And almost everybody would raise their eyes on the market size. Yet, how big is the market of mental health? Here, this whole founder passion and optimism. Yeah, market to hum bana. I think that was the major challenge that we saw. We did it for almost a year, and it was a good business, by the way. There was a company which had got funded by SAF just a year ago into the same segment. So it's not that VC funding nahi ho rahi hai, but I think
this is like what BetterHelp does in US. You wanted to do the same thing.
Exactly. So there is this. No, actually, yeah, BetterHelp and Talkspace. I always get confused with BetterHelp and BetterUp. So I always spend a second before I go. So BetterHelp and Talkspace are two companies, and we're pretty much trying to do the same. A lot of phone, asynchronous. We had a little bit of combination of you do a phone counseling plus ability to chat on our platform, because a lot of time things happen between sessions. I must say it was a good business.
Like in a way what Goki did for fitness. Like Goki was similar. No? They had an app through which you access a fitness trainer. So
absolutely. And they had programs and all that as well. We realized that for us, I think the first step was to just connecting, because in mental health, a lot of it is about just talking. You can share this with things and just self-reflect, because a lot of time what counselor really do is ask you good questions. They don't really give advice, which is the right way of doing the counseling as well. So going back to again, what I was saying, it was a good business. We were growing really good. There was no competition. We were using SEO was working really good for us. Ads were really working good and with very low cost per click, low CPC. So as dhanda, it was really good. Okay. What me and Anugu was wondering is dhande mein hum kya kar rahe hain? Matlab, what is our role? Ek patient hai, or I think it's so wrong for me to call it a patient. Ek user hai who's facing some either a marital or some sort of issue, or psychological issue. He or she needs a counselor, and they are talking on phone. So we are just like there is no technology play. That was the first challenge, that very little technology play. And the second bit was ki ye to dhanda hai. We can go and do it on that, but we were two techies turned product and underwear. Want to bring some disruption. What happened was there is this Lightspeed ka party, and I've spoken about that on my LinkedIn as well. So there's Lightspeed ka party where they invited a lot of Lightspeed keep doing that. So there were Byju's and there was everybody. So that's where I met a guy, one of the nicest founders I've met. I met a guy called Sridhar. Okay, now Sridhar is my very close friend, mentor, whatever you call it. So Sridhar, we were just talking over the drinks, and Sridhar said, what do you do? And I said, yeah, I'm a co-founder of a company called Ask Mile. We are into mental health. We help individuals, connect with the right counselors. And then I asked him, what do you do? And he said, yeah, I'm a co-founder of a company called Gainsight. Okay. And for some reason, I had not heard about Gainsight. And I said, okay, how big is it? And he said, yeah, we have just raised, I don't remember the exact number, we have just raised $80 million. And they were almost $1 billion company. And for a few minutes, I could not imagine that I was talking to a unicorn founder, so humble, and he was like, you are so good. You are changing the world. You are changing the society. Ghanta changing the society, calm. It's just not, like, that the normal struggle of and I was in that period.
unicorn कब बनेगी?
Yeah. And at this moment, we were very clear that ये unicorn नहीं बनेगी. At least 10, because again, like, and nothing but every VC had warned us. every VC had wanted, yeah, look at you guys. You guys have done so much. You have done. Why are you going about this not so great market? I mean, ठीक है, बाकी सब चीजें ठीक है, but या तो आप ये कहो कि हम समाज सेवा के लिए हैं, और या तुम ये कहो कि हम फाउंडर है जिन्हें यूनिकॉर्न बनाना है. तो you need to choose your path, right? And so anyways, so Sridhar then said, yeah, Abhinav, why have you thought about moving this to corporates and businesses? And it's like, नहीं यार, हम ये नहीं करते. हम लोग तो, we are mainly into relationships and mainly into personal life. He said, yeah. So he was, of course, he was the CTO of Insight, and he said, yeah, I have a large engineering team, and I I really care for my employees, you know, and I see a lot of them sometimes struggle. We don't know, the relationship between employee and employer is sort of breaking. You know, that, our parents had seen how they would look at their employer, which usually will be one for the whole product. And I really want to do something. I want to make them feel, give them the sense of belonging. I want to build that better relationship and trust. And that's what you guys do. You help individuals build better relationship. Why can't you help companies build better? Now, this was an amazing conversation. I was fully drunk. I went home, slept, and I woke up in the morning. I was like, did it really happen? Or was it just some sort of a dream? So I messaged him about. Now, this is an interesting part, because let's go back to Practo. Now, this is something we had witnessed. Okay. When the company grew from, say, 300 to 3,000, we saw a lot of challenges. For example, an individual contributor 2 years ago would now be the manager of manager of manager. And that comes with a lot of responsibility, right? Especially in a country like India, where you consider manager as not just your boss, but like your mentor, your philosopher, like you, yaar, aap sab kuch ho. You know, at least government mein to I've seen my parents were, because my dad was a very, a high ranking government official. I've seen how he's, people used to at least look up to him. And the same, at least young people would go and expect, but people are not trained. Suddenly at 24, 25, you are managing a team of some 100, 200 people. And this relationship was, I see how badly it got. And I personally faced it. I mean, I came as an individual contributor. Suddenly I was there. I had 8 product managers reporting to me, and then, a large other team. And I must say I struggled a lot. Now, this actually sort of, me and Alabu, we met and we looked at it and we said, yeah, what is the problem here? Okay, what exactly is the problem, and whether is this a good business to go in? And we had, of course, burnt our fingers with the market size, so we were quite worried about the whole market size and all that. Now, one thing we are sure that this is SaaS, and this was a time when SaaS, of course, was getting pretty hot as well. The whole Freshdesk and ChargeBee coming out, and of course, you are seeing some really good innovative companies as well, the likes of Postman and BrowserStack, which were not like we are also there, or a cheaper version. Now, so we spent few months into just understanding that what is this market, what is the challenge, and one challenge that we saw was about building this. Every company wants to build this high performing and engaged culture, especially at the time of when they are going into this hyper growth. When you raise funding, you have so many other things. You're hiring people that you forget about. Yaar, okay, hire to kar liya, bank account mein bhi 200 million pada hai, but we have to go and drive 2 R's, let's say, results and retention. You have to retain our top people. We have to drive 10x results. And that became sort of a challenge point, that how can you do that by either building great managers, building that better trust, or providing that clarity, about what the goals are and all of this. So that's where we got the whole idea. We started in late 2018, Peoplebox, which was earlier called Culture Grade. And one of my friend, actually, who's also founder, he gave me an advice. He said, yeah, who are you going to target? And at that moment, this was very normal, target US. So I said, yeah, mainly US. So he said, if you are thinking of targeting US, then when was the last time you went there? I said, वो मेरा IVLP days में मैं 3 दिन के लिए Bay Area गया था. So he said, no, you should actually go there. We had no funding. I mean, very little we had raised. So we have very little money. And I said, ठीक है, चलो, let me figure it out. So I went there, and we were like few days old, I would say.
You went to US to sell the idea or to do market survey? Like, is product की जरूरत है या नहीं है? Like,
Yeah. So, because Alagu had been to YC, there is one thing he kept telling me is PG mantra. I still call him his PG, Paul Graham, that the 3 mantras of success for a startup is talk to user, talk to user, talk to user. So my whole idea was to go there and just talk to companies. Is this really a challenge? Like, how are you solving it today? Or if there is a software, will you pay for it? How much will you pay for it? Like, what is that? In this book, Spin Selling, there is this very good notion about perceived value. That what is the perceived value? But interestingly, we had a paying customer by now who had paid for us. So there's a company, we met with the founder and we said, we are building off something. And he said, we have this, I think, 7th or 8th anniversary coming. We wanted to understand the culture. So do you have a product where I can capture the pulse of my employees? We did not even have a website. And I said, हमारा product तो ready है. So he was like, कल run कर सकते हैं. I was like, Monday को run करते हैं. He was like, okay. You won't believe it. It was so good. He got so impressed that 2 things happened. One, he recommended us to so many other companies. And then he said that if you're raising funding, please count me. All that stuff. But obviously we were not raising funding. We were like, अभी तो हमें पता ही नहीं हम एक जगह.
If you like to hear stories of founders, then we have tons of great stories from entrepreneurs who have built billion-dollar businesses. Just search for the Founder Thesis podcast on any audio streaming app like Spotify, Gaana, Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to the show.
अभी आपका product clarity नहीं हुई है अभी तक. Like you are saying employee engagement के लिए we can build a software to make employee engagement easier for fast growth companies. Now, what is it that you can build that you're not clear?
No idea. And in fact, not even employee engagement. Like if you put this whole culture, right, or I would say, and to be very honest with you, you put a very good one, even articulate that problem was a bit difficult. Okay. So we were into that sort of a journey. Okay. And one thing, so my whole purpose of going to US was talk to the customers to understand what that challenge is. And we knew that we had witnessed this thing. We witnessed in Practo when it grew so fast, we faced some challenges, whether it is developing manager, building a high-performing culture, retaining people. But we realized it primarily revolves around 2 things, driving better results, driving better retention. So engagement or measuring engagement, our first sort of beta, हमने 2 रात बैठ के बनाया. We got a paid customer as well.
Which would be like a survey tool. Like
it's a survey tool, but a very specific engagement survey. So now what happened there was by the way, the Lightspeed had immediately launched something called Lightspeed Extreme Entrepreneurs. And we got selected. By now, I remember I used to do the interview in Hong Kong. So I was in Hong Kong for my layover to Bay Area. And Alagu got a call and I was in Hong Kong and we did this whole interview. And by this, because we had built a product now, because we had at least a chota clarity so that this is going to be a part of it. But what will be the larger thing, we were also sort of not sure. And Lightspeed, again, we had at least some clarity, pedigree. So there's like, okay, aaj. So by the time I reached SF, we were in the extreme entrepreneur. Now there, when I was talking to users, of course, I met a lot of people who were my friends from IIT and or my B school, and many of them were founders. So they said, yaar, tu yahan aaya hua hai, to VC se mil le. So I was like, nahin, we have not. And Alagu ne mere ko kaha tha, no VC. So no, I mean not now because of course but
product market fit nahi hua hai to.
But because I was there for 3 weeks, right, the first 2 weeks were really good. I mean, I remember because we were so frugal, I would say. I mean, I was so worried about that ye time वापस नहीं आएगा. I spent hours and hours in making sure that my calendar is full. I would like every month. So this first 2 weeks was incredible. I had so many talks, so much clarity that by the mid of next week, I was getting a good clarity. Okay. And which was about that, 2 things basically came out. One was that diagnosis is very important. Any people decision that you make, it has to be based on some analytics and insight. That what is the problem? Are your teams worried about goals clarity? Are they worried about managers contact? Are they worried about vision? Do they even have the clarity what is company's focus is? Okay. But the last thing that you can go and do that is stop at diagnostics, because that's where survey tools stop. And we were very sure that we don't want to become a diagnostic tool. We want to become a tool which closes the loop. That was very clear. So closes the loop, how do you go and close the loop is we identify that and build something. So build better managers, provide, some tools to give them that clarity. And by the time, because that clarity was there. So one of my friend who's my colleague, we connected us with Nexus. We met with Nexus and met with Narain and Jishnu. They were pretty impressed by the vision, by the team as well. And I think I remember by the time I reached back to Bangalore, we almost had a term sheet. So that's so that's where we raised our seed funding. We had a few angels as well. So the co-founder of Udan, the co-founder of Exotel, they also invested a small fund in New York, Tusker. So we raised our first sort of seed round. And yeah, that's how Peoplebox got started.
But I'm still not clear product kya tha. Like one part of product I understand, the diagnostic part, which is a survey tool. But what is the other part of the product which fixes issues?
And that is a really good question, because neither did we. And that's a very honest answer. We also did not know that. We had some idea was that it might go through building great managers. Okay. And to be very honest, I always say that Peoplebox had two parts of our journey. One is this early 2019, when we started actually building the product, till mid 2021, and then mid 2021 to now, which is again the last 6 months. And this first 2.5 years versus this last 6 months, everything changed. So our entire first 2.5 years was about this thing. Okay, we have become a good player or good, I wouldn't say good player, but build a good product into diagnostics. But that's not what we want to do. We do not, and not that there are no unicorns. If you look at Culture Amp, it's a unicorn in diagnostic. But because we were hell-bent, or it was our vision to helping businesses drive better results, we know that, our attention, it won't come just from diagnostic. So what is that closing the loop was something that we also, I would very candidly say, struggled and spent our next 2.5 years. Now, what are the things we did? Okay. And almost none of it worked So we realized that for any business to go and grow, the culture is, of course, a very important part. And the managers need to be strengthened. The famous saying that people don't leave bad companies, they leave bad bosses. And that's very true. Almost all our surveys or talking to the people, we're realizing manager issue. Now, how do you go and build better managers? I think this was a very, very important thing. Now, because we were selling to the US companies, one common thing that we found there was the culture of one-on-ones. That there was a really, really good culture of one-on-ones there. And the second bit that we realized was that most of the managers require some support. Okay. Now, we were coming from a counseling background. So we said, can we go and replicate into coaching? Okay. And we're talking about managers coaching. The only thing that we had was we don't want to go back to the whole human element, because then we'll go back to the same problem that we saw last time. Then there will be coaches and there will be this. And again, BetterUp was another unicorn in making. This time, market size wasn't a problem. But we wanted to build a product now. We were 2 product guys from Practo. We wanted to build something which say, we have built a good product. So for us, the very first thing, again, you can call it a fascination. We built our first product. There was an AI coach. Okay. An AI coach which helps you connect better with your employees through great one-on-one. So people are already doing one-on-ones. Okay. And they are doing mostly people who do in a Google Doc, are running Google Doc, or the new age tool like Notion, Sana and all that. So we said, can we build something which is sort of, it has a coaching element, which helps you do your better one-on-one? And that became our sort of first sort of product. Didn't work. Didn't really work. And
this was what, like it was a, so by one-on-one, you mean like say the routine meetings when
that's a good question. What is a one-on-one? Okay. And in fact, to be honest with you, we also didn't know what is a one-on-one. Okay. So, well, if you go back to the philosophy, one-on-one is basically a concept introduced by Andy Grove back in those Intel days, and he spoke about it in his the very famous book, High Output Management. So one-on-one is basically, at least in Bay Area, now I'm seeing a very good culture of that in India as well. It's nothing but a weekly or a fortnight meeting between a manager and his direct report, okay, where it is driven by the direct. It's not driven by the manager. So a typical meeting is, "Acha, is project ka kya chal raha hai? I have a feedback for you. I would," and employee would say, "Yaar, kyun?" This meeting is exact opposite. This meeting is, "Okay, where are the challenges you are facing? Is there anything I can do with your career growth? Are you happy with the product? Are you happy with me? Are you facing any challenges with this? How's things at home?" It's all about employee. Okay. And that companies identified is impactful factor in retaining talent and sort of giving, employees helping them see the best out of them. Because if you look at the performance reviews, right, they're always backward looking. 6 mahine mein, saal mein ek baar, and manager is going to and say, "Last October you didn't do that," or "Last October or September you did good." But here everything is forward looking. So this culture was blooming. There were a lot of tools coming as well. And we said that we wanted to add a coaching element to it. Now the challenge that we faced here, which we realized, was that because the coaching was based on the diagnostics or the survey that we were running, everything was anonymous there. So imagine that you are a manager with 4 direct reports. We go and get that your team is struggling with, say, getting clarity. Okay. Now there might be a possibility 2 or 3 may not have even answered. Okay. So because of the anonymity, we can't share first all the things. Second is who said what. And when you coach people, right, you need to be very specific. With this guy, this is the issue. So it didn't really match that the input that we needed for an AI coach, because wasn't sufficient. Okay. So what we said that, yeah, theek hai, ye AI coach ko chhodte hain, let's focus on the one-on-one. Okay. Let's go and build it. But and the idea there was we knew that the one-on-one tool is not going to be our main thing. But if we go into the one-on-one tool, it will help us understand some of the problems. Okay. That what it is that people are facing, what people were struggling with. And I would say for the next 2.5 years, that's what we did. We signed up. So in mid to or in slightly late 2020, we did a sort of a hack of this, did an offer where we signed up some 450 plus companies with some fees, but we said up until this employee, you don't have to go and pay much.
And what was the product like? You built a product for one-on-one.
So this was one-on-one. Like this was one-on-one. This was employee engagement surveys. Okay. And one of the very important things that we were seeing in almost every survey was the lack of clarity of goals. Okay. So we also built a goals tracking software, or you can say an OKR software. Although that wasn't our most sort of core at that moment. Okay. And that is now that was in future just about to get changed. Okay.
So, but what is that one-on-one tool? What is it? So like you said, people use maybe a Google Doc where they make notes. So what was your tool like?
So what our tool will go and do is the very first thing it will go and do that it will suggest you what to talk. So we had a long list of suggested talking points, different for manager, different from him for direct report. Okay. So and this become our most loved or most used feature, because when you go into Google Doc, it's a very normal phenomenon. Nobody prepares for one-on-one. So manager will go and ask, "Hey, do you have anything to talk?" And direct will say no. And then they will start talking about, "Acha, us project mein kya chal raha hai? Acha, ghar pe kya chal?" And it took this half an hour, which could have been such critical, which could have become so important, got wasted. You could have talked about feedback, could have talked about career growth. So we would go and tell, these are the things you could talk. So another thing that we had was the ability to rate employees' productivity and performance. So COVID had hit, okay, and everybody was working from home now. So people were struggling that the days where an employee can go to a manager by swirling his or her chair around and put a hand onto the shoulder and say, "I'm struggling with it," are gone. So what we did is we launched this feature where just before a one-on-one, we asked the employee, how was your productivity, or how would you rate your productivity since your last one-on-one? So they can now, we are not asking their performance. It's not a self-performance. It's just about productivity. Are you facing any issues? Similarly, we'll ask the manager, how would you rate his or her performance since you passed one-on-one, and this is only visible to the manager. The benefit is that if I as a manager can see the productivity and the performance before the one-on-one, I will talk about it. And that's what it did. So too surprisingly, it even became quite famous in India. We got a lot of customers, but Dunzo became our first big customer who just bought it for one-on-one, even though we had good suite of products now. We have employee engagement, we have goals, we have one-on-ones, and in one-on-ones, we have this whole continuous performance check-ins as well. So this was the product, but there were a lot of other things. For example, I'll tell you some of the challenges that people face with Google Doc. Google Doc either can be private or can be shared. It can't be both. So if I'm using a shared running Google Doc, I have some private thing. So I'm going to use my Apple Notes or, Google Keep. Another thing that it challenges that action items. A lot of one-on-ones doesn't have action items. So if I put it in somewhere, right, I don't get a reminder. So if we build a feature, if we put an action item, it comes on the top. Ki last few weeks mein jo aapne one-on-one kiya mein ye action item, and it's also give you a reminder in Slack and all. So, similarly, when you do your one-on-one, can you see your goals or your direct report goals at the center of it so that you don't miss talking about it? Because a lot of time people talk about goals at the performance review time. So these were some of the things about our work.
One product is one-on-one. One product is survey product. What else did you launch?
We launched a goals tracking software as well, where you can keep your goals or OKRs, because obviously we had OKRs introduced in Fracto when we were there. Quite amazing phenomena. We loved that.
So talk to me about OKR. What is OKR? I don't understand OKR.
I can spend hours and sometimes, but I probably may want to talk about how did we get into the whole OKRs thing, or how did it become. So OKR is our core, and I want to spend a good bit of time into that. But how did it become our core is a sort of a journey that happened. That's why I said, right, we had a 2.5 years of introspection and exploration, and then that sort of a scale or that growth that you look for, or at least you vie for. So when we launched goals, we weren't very specific about OKRs. We were like, because it was consistently coming in surveys that we don't have clarity about goals, and companies were also asking, if you want to go and solve that, we need a goals tracking software. Now we can't do that. Our one-on-ones sit at one place and goals at another place, and we wanted to merge two, because in one-on-ones we wanted them to have a clarity about goals. We built this goals feature, but our focus remained the same, that we want to build a high-performing, engaged culture for hyper-growth startups through building great managers. And it took us some time, but again, they say when in trouble, go back to first principle. Is that what is a great manager? How do you go and define a great manager? Okay, and a very good analogy that we got was from a sports person. What is a great sports person? You can say, what makes Sachin great? Because he's very nice at heart, because he does a little good PR, because he works hard. No. Great sports person win matches. Simple and straight. It's a formula. So our belief about the good managers, what? Good managers or great managers are the one who score high on managers' rating when we ask in the survey. So what do we ask? We would go and ask, how motivated are you to work under your manager? And whoever would rate more, their team wants to work, and if the team wants to work, of course, they would stick with them, and if you will have a retention. And after working with 3 companies, we realized that many of these 9.8 and 9.6 managers got fired because they could not deliver results or some other thing. So it became clear to us that a great manager is somebody who consistently deliver great team results. And when we had that thing, right, we realized that at the center of it, whatever culture we want to build, whether it is engaged or this high performance or high growth, goals are at the center of it. It's not at the periphery. It's not another feature. Okay. It is at the center, because if you just go and crack that bit, okay, everything else becomes easy. Your ability to have better manager-employee relationship, the ability to build a culture of feedback and recognition, your ability to, do this continuous performance review, even your ability to do better business review, everything fall in place just if you solve that goals problem. Now, what is the goals problem? The goals problem is that does every employee knows that what exactly are their goals? Do they know that how their goal or the work they're doing, how is it aligned to the overall company's purpose or their strategic objective? And most importantly, what is company's strategic objective? If you wake your top leaders in the middle of the night and you ask them this simple question, what is the company's top 3 strategic priorities? Put it, you will be surprised what people say and how, and this is with the leadership. I'm talking about top leadership. Okay. How misaligned they are. Okay. And that is where we realize that the answer is in both in a framework and a product. And that framework is OKR. Okay. So because our companies were using our tool, we already had a goals or OKR software. We really realized the power of. Now coming back to what is OKR, I think first of all, OKR is something which is just taking the whole startup world by storm. It's like spreading like wildfire today. Okay. So there are, startups like, Zeta, Bhavin, who is the CEO. He like swears by it, but at least we did some very, very high level research and we realized that 70% of India's unicorn today use OKR. Okay. Now, what is OKR? OKR is a goals framework. Okay. And which actually helps you align your goals all the way from top to the bottom. Okay. So it was actually started again by Andy Grove, the famous guru, who also started one-on-ones, or at least the concept of one-on-ones. So he did it in Intel, okay, and he wrote it in his book as well. But it was made famous by an employee of it, who later became the investor of Google, John Doerr. He wrote a book about that called Measure What Matters as well. So this is the early age of Google, when Google was very small, less than 100 employee company. And John Doerr went to them and said, yeah, I learned something from my boss, Andy, and he had this really good framework, and you should go and use that. Okay. And then Google did it, and then Spotify, LinkedIn, Twitter in India, Zeta, Zerodha, hundreds of companies. And the thing about OKR, right, before I go into the detail, it's not that these companies came and say, yeah, we did OKR, it was helpful. They said that we became this because we used OKR. That's what OKR is able to do. So OKR has multiple things, but the number one thing that OKR does is that it helps you focus. A very good saying is that OKRs are a reflection of how focused the company is. And what OKRs does it, like, let's take any other frameworks like KRAs or KPIs. Okay. So you say that I use KPI. So what will happen? You say my KPIs are revenue, or could be in a SaaS word, MRR. In a consumer word, it might be, let's say, MAU or a DAU. Okay. And it's a metric that you track. Okay. In KRAs, what happens is that people go and put some key results area that you have to drive better business, you have to drive better customer success. Okay. And they usually set for annual ones and looked annually as well, mainly for a performance review. OKRs is, it starts from the top. What is company's top objectives are? Okay. And they break into objective and key results. So objective could be, for example, for Google, objective would be to become the fastest or the best search engine. How do you do a key result? A key result is a measurable. It's measurable means that ensure that you have
some metric,
20 million daily active users. Okay. Something. And then for that, what is the objective of the product team, engineering team, and then further down a product manager and all that. Okay. Now, what makes OKR, as you can see, there are multiple things about OKR. One is that it aligns. Second thing is you break it into smaller chunks. So rather than an annual, you break it into quarterly. So every quarter you set it. Okay. Then the another thing is it is very motivating. So the objective is motivating, at the same time measurable as well. So you know where you are going and how do you know you are going there. So objective is where do I want to go? Key result is that how do I know I'm going there? The another thing is a moonshot. You set very high goals. Okay. All of these things. But all of these things I would say are not the reason what makes OKR so disruptive. The number one reason what makes OKR so disruptive is this 5-letter word called focus. And I want to give you with an example. And that example is really, really important one, or probably the one way I think how to understand OKR. Let's go back to 2015. Okay. If you remember, 2015 was the is a bloodbath year for food tech sector. Okay. So there were tiny halls and there were food pandas and Swiggy and Zomato and all. Okay. And nobody was ready to fund. Okay. Now, for a moment, let's imagine that you are Swiggy. Okay. And Swiggy if you look at Swiggy at early time, they had the least amount of funding. They have least number of cities. They had least number of restaurants. And they were not giving what everybody was doing, which is giving discounts. Okay. And Swiggy belief was that I'm going to go and win this market based on just one thing, which is timely delivery. I'm going to focus on time. And the philosophy that Harsha had, which I really loved about, is that he said that bad food delivered in good time is a good experience. And he said, look at Domino's. Domino's don't have the world's best pizza, but they are a billions of dollar company because they deliver in 30 minutes and nobody is able to beat them. Okay. And they are growing like crazy. And that's what we want to do. Okay. Now, let's take a hypothetical scenario. Let's say this is December 2015. You are the CEO of Swiggy, and I am, say, an investor. I'm Tiger. And I come to you and I say, Harsha, I really like you. I really like your company. Okay. You are at, say, 4,000 deliveries a day. If by next quarter you reach to 10,000 delivery a day, I'm going to sign you a $20 million check. And I mean every word of it. Okay. And I go away. And you call everybody and you say, guys, we have a goal. Okay. What would be your number one goal?
Number of deliveries.
Yeah. It makes sense, right? Your number one goal should be that make 10,000 deliveries by end of next quarter, right? It has everything written on it. It is smart, it is measurable, it is specific, measurable, achievable and all that. But there is one problem with this goal that OKR solves. This goal doesn't talk about how. How are you going to do that? What is it that you're going to focus on in the next 3 months that you're going to achieve to 10,000? Because it has taken you some time to come for. It's a moonshot goal to go suddenly from 4,000 to 10,000. So you got to do something different. What is that something different? You got to do something. And that is a challenge that you see with every hyper-growth company. They put numbers into their goals, even though they have strategies. Okay. Now, the problem with not including your strategy in the goal is this. Let's suppose we set ourselves as this thing. Every week, I'm going to go and track it. Okay. So now, how is it communicating to your team? We have to go and achieve 10,000 deliveries. So everybody is going to do something. Somebody is going to say, let's go and launch in 2 more cities. Let's go and focus on discounts. Let's go.
Yeah, let's get more restaurants on board.
Let's focus on a better onboarding experience. Okay. And they are going to go and this is what you call a textbook definition of misalignment. Because now every team is going into different direction to achieve a particular number. Okay. So now if you were to use OKRs here, what would be your number one objective? What would an OKR look like? Okay. So your company objective will be this: become the fastest food delivery company. The important thing here is fastest, which means I am telling that our focus is going to be speed. Now, what will be the key results? The key results will be 95% of deliveries should happen within 37 minutes. The next key result would be client NPS should grow from 40 to 60. The next key result would be increase your average monthly delivery per customer from 5 to 8. And then if that happens, achieve 10,000 daily delivery. Because if you do this, 10,000 daily deliveries automatically happen. So what you're communicating to people is the most important thing is how. And it's not that the companies don't know how. How is nothing but a strategy. They spend hours and days into going into the, all these offsites and all, or getting into this whiteboard to building that strategy. It is they forget to replicate that strategy into goals and bring it into their business review. So what happens is that when you actually go and set your goals and review it, nobody talk about a strategy until end of the year or end of the work. And that's the number one thing that makes OKRs different. And when we learn that goals are at the center of it, we ensure that for us, our OKR, okay, or our mission is just about one thing, okay, helping startups, mainly hyper-growth startups, grow 10x by focusing on the right goals and measuring them in a magically easy way. That's what, because if you do that, like I said, everything falls. And that is what our journey has been, say, for the past 6 months, where we have been able to very, very much focus on that. And of course, get to, finally find our core, or what you call a sweet spot. And of course, go
The product market fit.
the product market.
So, so this would be like a waterfall, right? Like it will start from the top and then have to be drilled down, and it would need a fair amount of setup time, right? Like you would need to really, as a founder, you would need to think about what are those objectives and broad metrics, and then you would need to think about how does that metric translate for each of my teams. Like, is that how it happens, or?
So generally that I think the question is, does it take a lot of time from the founders? The answer is no, if you do it smartly, okay? Because that time is already being spent. Like I said, every company have a strategy, because that's the strategy they go and articulate to investor. If you look at any industry, right? Let's look crypto, or let's look, some of the industry like, employee insurance, okay? Or you can look at, even e-commerce, right? When investors go and ask them this question, how are you going to win the market? How are you going to go and beat it? They have an answer. Sometimes this answer is cost. Sometimes this answer is better product, or this, our focus is going to be this. For example, what for Swiggy, the focus was about time. I think almost every startup have that. The problem is that they keep it somewhere stored and logged and do not reflect that or articulate in their goal. So while they go and say, we are going to go and focus on, say, time or cost or something, when they set goals, they are nothing but business as usual metrics. Why revenue, why MRR, why ARR, why DAU, why MAU, why margins, which does not communicate to your teams what is our focus. When we say that there's a misalignment, right? People don't get misalignment about number. If you go and say, my goal is to reach 10 million ARR, you wake up people in the middle of the night, they'll say, yes, our goal is 10 million ARR. That is not alignment. Alignment is the how. What are you going to focus on? What is the company's number one strategic priority, which will help you achieve that 10 million ARR, is the where misalignment happens. And that happens because your goals that you track on a weekly, daily, or a monthly level, and the strategies that you have set are miles apart. So if you just do it smartly, before the quarter, anyways, teams are meeting. Anyways, the leadership is meeting. Anyways, they are building out a strategy. When you are defining your goal, just make sure that you reflect it. And that's why OKR has given you that framework. Very easy. Put an objective, put a key result, and then give it to your teams to align it. Now, does it require some effort? Does it require some learning? Does it require some coaching? Absolutely, yes. OKR, despite being so powerful, have a very high 90% first time implementation failure rate. 90%. In 90% of the companies, OKR fails at the first time. In fact, even in Google, it took 18 months. And it takes a long time because people do, they don't know how to do it right. They do it in a wrong way. They just convert their KPIs into OKR. A very common behavior is set and forget. You set about it and you forget it. But if you do it rightly, it doesn't take any more effort than you're already spending. In fact, the return on investor, in fact, it will save you a lot of time while giving you a 10x better result.
So essentially, you're saying that just do your documentation properly when you're making your strategy. That documentation properly is setting the OKR.
So the most important thing when it comes to OKRs, in fact, any time of goals is two. One is setting them right. But I would say that's just the one part. OKR fails, when OKR fails, right? When we say OKR fails, what it means is that they were not able to bring that substantial value or an impact that your earlier framework, could it be a KPI, KRA, balance scorecard, whatever it was, or business as usual metrics, were able to. That's what means that OKR fails. This is the number two reason why OKR fail, is not setting them right. But there is a bigger one, which is set and forget. You're not tracking them. So a very common behavior that we have seen in companies is you spend 2-3 days setting your OKRs, put it into a Google sheet or in a HRMS system or even in a sort of a OKR performance management system. and then you forget about it. You go back to a weekly KPI tracking sheet where every week you track every KPI, and then now you have two parallel goals tracking system. One is an OKR, okay, which only looks once in a quarter or twice in a quarter. And then this is, like, the famous saying that the only worse thing than a bad news is bad news late. That's what happens with OKR. End of the quarter, अरे यार हमारे को तो focus करना था on the customer experience. वो तो हम भूल ही गए. Because nobody were able to bring strategy into your goals tracking meeting. So while documentation is an important thing, it's just the starting. The most important thing without any goals is tracking. And when we say tracking, I would say specifically your business review meeting. Because if you look at your goals, right, the only time when goals are looked at are your review meeting. Now they could be your weeklies, it could be your MBR, QBR, whatever you call. So those meetings, if you track your goals in the right way, that's why our number one OKR is to help businesses track their goals in the magical easy way. And of course, the second one, focus them on the right goal as well. Then only, of course, if you do the tracking right, that's when you're able to achieve that results.
Okay. So tell me, what is the user journey like? It will start with the founder first signing up and setting something, and then like for you probably need to create like a hierarchy on the tool first. Like what's the user journey? Like just talk to me about that. Like
so the hierarchy is usually automatically created because we integrate with any HRMS system. So the employee records are usually, there's the single source of truth is either an HRMS system, or people, if they don't use HRMS system, they already have data on the Google Sheet. So we just
so reporting managers and
everything about it.
Yeah.
I think it pretty much starts from either the founder's team or sometimes strategy or also get involved there. So it always starts with setting company objectives, and usually not more than 3 that what we set on a quarterly level. So if people come, they put their goals, objective. So 1 objective, 3 key result, 1 objective, 3 key result, 1 objective, 3 key result. And of course, we also handhold them into, this is the good objective. A lot of time people make key results as an initiative. Like I give you an example, launch iPhone app. That's not really a key result. A good key result is get 4.8 rating on App Store with a minimum 50 users. Because it's an outcome, not an output. So the very first thing is about setting the goals. Now the problem, and then of course we give it to the department heads, the function head, and they set their goals and they need to align it to the one. To give an example, let's suppose that one of a very important thing for you is about user experience. So you say that, my user, which might be, let's suppose, could be, say, a salesperson, okay? That my salesperson NPS should be 50. It's a good key result, okay? What you cannot do or what we don't recommend is that, okay, that's your company objective. Now, engineering goal objective is build better tech speed, build a bugless product, launch 3 versions of apps, because it needs to be something which aligns with your overall company objective, which is the salesperson NPS. So going back to that Swiggy example, right? If you go and say my focus is on speed, then the engineer objective and key result should be about improving speed. Customer success should be the same. Customer support should be the same. Product should be the same. Everybody's goal should go and align to our focus, which is first is time and then whatever it is. So that's how a typical setting goals happen, which is typically a less than a week exercise once every quarter. But the real journey is what happens during the quarter, which is the tracking.
And how is this setting up done? Like there'll be fields to enter the objective and then a field to enter.
Now, this is an important thing that you said, right? That when we started building our goals product, right? We had a very interesting epiphany, okay? We realized that almost all the companies that were putting their goals, they had some goals storing or goals tracking software. It could be a HRMS system, which most of the HRMS system comes with goals because obviously they have to do a performance review. It could be a project management tool like a Asana or a Notion, or even it could be a performance management tool that they would use. Okay. But almost none of them were using any of these tools for their goals. They were using simple spreadsheets. Could be Excel, could be a Google Sheet. And of course, we tried to understand why, and it was a no-win because it's simple. So what our number one OKR was to build a super easy to use single page application, which is as simple as a spreadsheet so that you never have to go and run it, but have all the benefits that a spreadsheet doesn't have. Because if you put your goals, then you have to have multiple tabs or multiple places. You can't see an alignment, you can't see go on multiple things. You can't have a log. Okay. You can't give notification. So that's what it's a very, like think of it as like a spreadsheet or a Gmail, which is a single page application. Your 95% of the thing can happen on that page. That's how it happens.
And so once everybody has set this up, how does the tracking happen? Like you said, magically tracking.
That's
What
the
is
most
that
important.
magic?
That is now so let's just go back to the old days. Okay. Let's say you are sales guy. Okay. And your job is to get 10 crore revenue. Okay. Now you use a CRM system, maybe a Salesforce, Lead Squad, HubSpot. Okay. Now you have goals set either in a spreadsheet or in a HRIS system. Okay. So when you do your sale, what is the first thing you do? You go and put it on your CRM because that's the only way you can track. I'm asking you, Akshay, please, can you also go and put it in the Google Sheet? And then, because we use another Google Sheet for our weekly tracking, can you also put it there? What would your behavior? यार मैं sales करूं या मैं जाके spreadsheet में data हूं? Okay. So the number one problem, like I said, the companies face when they put their OKRs into some places is set and forget. People don't update it. And the chief of staff, the HR, the leadership, यार कोई update कर दो यार. And one of the main reasons why OKR are not tracked in a weekly basis because getting them to update it is so difficult. So the very first magical thing that we go and do is we integrate it with any software that you use, wherever that data sit. It might be sitting on a database, could be a MySQL, Postgres, or all that. It might be on a SaaS tool, might be HubSpot, Gainsight, Jira, and all that, or might be on another spreadsheet. We go and say, any key result, which is a number, must be sitting somewhere. Okay. You go and integrate. The moment it gets updated, this gets updated. So now you have one place in the company, one single source of truth in the company, where your entire company goals are aligned and updated in real time. So now think about it, the impact of think about it, right? A lot of business review meetings happen about visibility. इस डेटा का क्या हुआ? ये डेटा कहां पर पहुंचा? Now you don't need to have a meeting for visibility. You don't even need to ask somebody because that data is clear. It might be coming from, let's think about marketing team. Marketing and that data comes from Google Analytics to Google AdWords, from HubSpot to, reply. Like even a small company like us uses some 10 tools for marketing. But a larger 200 employee company must be using some 50 tools. So collating that data and getting that updated is extremely difficult. But now that you have that, at least your business review meeting is nothing about visibility. It's just about strategy, red flags, roadblocks, and all, and the future plan. Okay. So that's the first thing we do. But then there is a second bigger problem. Okay. Which is also very interesting, which is very rarely, in fact, almost never, the goals tracking in a business review meeting happen where your goals are. So where are your goals? Your goals are either in a spreadsheet or in a, say, a HRM. But what happens in the business review? Most of the business review, there are PPTs. So there will be a team, sales team, marketing team, operation team. They will go and spend 2 or 3 days, find graphs and find narratives and find in a PPT and will go and present. And people will ask questions. Why? Why PPT? Because PPT is pluggable. You can put anything there. You can put a story. You can put the progress. You can put status. You can put graphs and all that, which of course, a typical goals sheet would want to, because a goals tracking will mainly have a snapshot. Okay. Now, because it is a PPT, now people go and focus on PPT rather than what is the status of the goals are. Okay. And again, it creates multiple tracking systems in the company. What we have gone and make sure that if you just fix this problem, you fix your business review meetings and make sure that there is one tool where your goals are and the tracking of it by making all the data and narrative pluggable. So I can drag and drop. I can drag and drop a story. I can allow people to ask questions earlier. I can allow people to answer. A simple example, and this is a most common behavior. Can you imagine any meeting where notes are not taken and action items are not there? Every recurring meeting, notes must be taken. Somebody notes लिखे जा रहे हैं action item. अच्छा, अब इसमें हम क्या करेंगे कि we will you launch this, or let's go and focus on this, and let's create a campaign for this. How many times the action items created in the prior meeting, in the next meeting starts with the previous week action item or previous month action item? Very, very rarely. So you created action item and then people forget about it. Okay. Now, if you make it so easily, what can happen is you make action item, the next business review starts with an action item role. What were the action items that you discussed? And then anything, you can take a small snippet of, say, your Jira dashboard, put it in there. So the time you need to prepare for a business review, it uses so much. Now, if the time needed for the business review is less, if the visibility is not a problem, you can track your goals much more frequently and in a much shorter time. So you don't need 3 hours. You can spend 30 minutes, talk about the challenges, talk about the plans, discuss the strategy, done. So you don't need QBRs now. You can move into monthly business reviews or weeklies. And that is where the magic of tracking your goals comes in. If you remove these blockers, right, that, oh my God, updating takes a challenge, creating PPT takes a challenge. So one of our OKR is a 3-letter word, kill that PPT. That's it, kill that PPT. No business review meeting should have a PPT. I give you more example. Let's suppose you are showing me a graph, okay, on a PPT. And I say I'm the CEO and I go and notice onto that graph and say, I want to go more about this. I start asking questions. So somebody said we did, say 120 trials. And I said, but I want to know more about, among these 120 trials, how many were from, say, ICP? How many came from this region? And the guy says, I'm sorry, I don't have that data. Let me come back to you. Very common thing, right? Because the reason is because PPT doesn't have an inherent property to dig deep. But if you make your data pluggable, you can actually go as much deep as you want. And people don't even need to have this blind-sided view that you usually have in the review. So that's the most important sort of thing for us. That if you we have an aim to help startups grow 10x and achieve those moonshot goals, then tracking becomes the most important thing, followed by helping them set right goals.
Is the integration manual, like the one-time integration? Because there would be so many different tools. So, is the onboarding process for you like a manual onboarding process where you have to like integrate all the data sources?
Well, actually, and surprisingly and very proudly, no. Okay, because if you think about it, the point that it's a big problem, and we also internally discussed it. That how can we go and integrate with every tool? Okay, so the easier path is let's use Zapier. Zapier integrates, so we become a middle. Zapier is a tool, but we decided against it. And the reason we decided against it is because the same problem that if we put Zapier, the experience of integrating with another tool is bad. First, I go and sign up on Zapier, then I go and build an API through Zapier. What we did was a native integration. It should be so simple that I click. Let's say I put a link of a Google Sheet, or I put the MySQL connection, put a SQL or a cell value or a JQL, and that submit, and that's it. You do not require anything from us to actually go and integrate. It should be, if you are a user or an admin of that product, it should be that simple. But we want to take it way ahead. I mean, this is just the start. Right now, what you are doing is you are setting a goal and then integrating. But just think about it, right? A lot of goals are not even set. Let's suppose that you are using MailChimp for your campaign. Okay. But you forgot to add that goal. Okay. That I need to do something about my campaign. But if you're using it, there got to be some goal associated with that. This goal must be aligned. Okay. Can you, like, our mission or vision is that how can we go make it so easy for people that they can capture goals even without writing it? So that when they are at MailChimp, they identify, this is a goal, one click, automatically integrates with Peoplebox. Now I have a goal, it is automatically integrated. The moment the campaign runs, whatever the key results come, automatically updated in Peoplebox and aligned with the overall goal. So like I said, that's why we say that our OKR is to help companies track it in a magically easy way. And by companies, I mainly, our main niche is hypergrowth startups only.
So this would need like some sort of a technical administrator first who can connect MailChimp or who can connect Salesforce or all of these tools who can do that one-time connection.
Not really. And as long as you are an admin, if you are an admin of a HubSpot, you don't really need a technical guy. And for wherever you need a technical one, for example, a MySQL, you anyways are the owner. See, the people who need to go and connect it with, say, a MySQL, mostly are going to be engineers, and they are anyways so if I'm a customer success guy, let's suppose, and I use Gainsight, okay, I'm going to be anyways the admin for that. So it's easy for me to go and sort of integrate with it, or similarly on HubSpot as well.
Like how would it happen? Say like a MailChimp integration. Like
so think of HubSpot, right? So what you just go and do that is you say this data comes from HubSpot. We ask for HubSpot credentials, and if you are an admin, we allow it. Then you go to HubSpot and you click that this data is coming from this place. So you click on the field. So let's suppose that number is revenue, okay, or trials. Now both of this data sits in HubSpot. So you just go, this is the data. The moment it gets updated in HubSpot, it automatically gets updated.
So you've built your own version of Zapier, basically, then.
Yeah, but only between for Peoplebox versus this one.
Yeah, and one of the things that we have ensured, and again that is a very important OKR for us, is the turnaround time. And we go even say that as long as there is another tool which has an open API, we will go and integrate it, even if it is your internal tool.
Okay, so what kind of customers use Peoplebox? Give me some case studies of the integration, how it happened, what kind of results did they see?
Yeah, so all our customers are, I would say all, but most of our customers are hypergrowth startups. So if we talk about India, Dunzo, Khatabook, Plum, Nova Benefits, Silverpush, Exotel, even Lightspeed, the VC firm uses Peoplebox. And like I said, OKR is the center of it, but we have different use cases as well. We also have a tool that we didn't talk about when remote hits, because we were also always about closing. We launched a small feature called Coffee Connect, which basically replicates the water cooler chats and connect, help people employ. We also have a performance review entirely in Slack. So because integration is very core, one of our focus is to get people onto Peoplebox as little as possible. Can they do work outside Peoplebox, but still get the best value out of it so that you don't have one more software fatigue? So most of the companies are funded, well-funded, fast-growing startups, and they use from all, like for their entire goals, performance management, and employee engagement, because we have a full suite now, and everything's centered around goals. So people use this for running their surveys, for connecting their employees to build better peer connect, for doing their one-on-ones, for doing performance management, and of course, most importantly, setting and tracking their goals.
Is it an HR-driven activity typically, or like who drives it?
Yeah.
Like?
So there are, and that's a very interesting question. There are two bits about our software. Okay, the performance management and employee engagement is HR-driven. Okay, the OKR is a mix of both. HR is involved, but there is also somebody from the founders team or strategy who are, who becomes the owner to make sure that the strategy is well crafted and it is aligned, because that becomes the more forte of the strategy and the founding team. So we work a lot close with founders, or if they have a founding team like a chief of staff.
Okay. So in a way, Peoplebox is like the operating system for the softer aspect of your organization, like the people part of your organization. The Peoplebox is like the operating system for that.
You can call it an operating, and we ourselves, we say we are an operating system or a control panel or a command center, like whichever way, for your for your culture, for the whole, to help you build a high performing and engaged culture. And then, like I said, we primarily, like, a lot of people ask you, what is the ROI? Why should I go and spend? And I say it's all about 2 hours. 2 hours. Okay. Results and retention. Like a typical 100 employee company, if your target is say 200 crore, okay, and if you don't use Peoplebox or say, okay, you will most likely say achieve 200 crore. If you use that, it'll be in 250 crore or 240 crore. Okay, so we help you impact and grow your top line. So the cost of not using us might be that delta. And second is retention. Let's suppose if you, from say today, 2nd February, from 2nd February 2022 to 2nd February 2023, you may get 10 undesired attrition. Okay. We will help you at least save 3 of them. So you can imagine the cost of these or the value of these 3 retentions. So ultimately, that's what our value comes to.
So how big is the TAM for this? Like you made that mistake last time around with when you were building for mental wellness and health, because this is not something which intuitively you would think, हाँ, ये तो सबको चाहिए. Even though it's, मतलब, once you understand it, then you may have that conviction कि हाँ, ये सबको चाहिए. But वो, like, common parlance में, it's not like people are asking कि यार कोई OKR का tool बताओ मुझे implement करना. It's not there yet. No, मतलब.
Actually, you'll be surprised, and then we can see that the cost of our CPC for Google AdWords has just gone crazy. The number of people who are searching for it, and at the same time, the whole competition as well. But you are right. I think what you are saying is right. That it's not that. It's not like HRMS system, or it's not like a CRM system that if you have a Salesforce, you must have that. But that is changing very, very increasingly fast. Like I said, we did some high level research. We realized that 70% of India's unicorn are using OKRs, and OKRs or any way of doing better goals management and business will becoming very fast. And ultimately, it comes down to efficiency. If you think about it, right, any business, and of course, we focus a lot on startups, but any business, the moment they go over 50, use business review. They use a meeting to track their goals. And there is a huge gap and inefficiency there, which not just makes the preparation and the duration of that time really, really high, but the impact that they could do really, and it doesn't affect like some smaller thing. It affects your ultimate results. So it's this becoming very big. I believe that even the startups world that we focus on, okay, that in itself is very, very huge, because for them, the OKR, they're usually the early adopters. So what we are increasingly seeing, and I would say it has changed a lot in the past 1.5 years, is that we don't really need to go and sell the concept of OKR anymore. It's becoming increasing. Like, I would say yes to a lot of non-startup companies, okay, who come and say, yeah, we have heard about OKRs and how do you think and what is it? Tell us about it. Now it is all about, we are already using OKRs, or we are already thinking of using OKR. You tell us, how are you better than a Google Sheet or an HRIS system? Because we have the availability of both. And that's where the conversation goes.
So do you see like this being as mainstream and big as, say, like, Darwin Box became a unicorn? And obviously, because every company of a certain size needs an HRIS, and therefore it's a large market. Do you see that happening with Peoplebox?
Without a doubt. And a good example, and if analogy you go and take, that is Lattice. I don't know if you heard of Lattice, but Lattice is, again, their focus is not so much of goals, but it has increasingly become now, but they are also an OKR performance management. And they just raised, just like 3 days ago, they raised a big round with $3 billion valuation. It's a YC company. But if you look at OKR market, just like, although we are not just in the whole OKR, we are also a full-fledged role. But if you look at OKR, it suddenly becomes so hot. Like Ali, or the recent OKR tool, which got acquired by Microsoft. There are at least, 3 almost unicorns or unicorn companies in OKR space as well. Okay. So again, think about it, like, we go back to the days of customer success softwares or customer onboarding softwares, these new categories or sales enablement, where people are saying, yeah, is this like, it's a good to have, to very soon transform it is to must have. And I think OKRs or goals management is at the cusp of that, where right now it is already there for the startups. Few are. Very soon, I think it's spreading to the other industries as well.
Soon it's going to be a must-have. So what's your moat then? Like, there is no like network effect as such, which like, say, a social media platform might have, which ensures stickiness and all that. But I mean, here, people could replicate a similar version of it. And so what is your moat?
I think that's a good question. And I would just say one answer, or at least what we aim to be, and that is focus. Focus. Two things. Fast growing startups, focus on helping them magically track it. There are so many things we can do. And like, look at our product. I think, we were talking about Practo, right? And I was just so easy for me to go and say that they are Practo spread thing. But look at us. We didn't do any better. We had, despite we burning our fingers, and I would say that again repeatedly, that, it was so easy. Like, they say life is so easy to speak and so difficult to live. When we came out of Practo, we had clarity that one of the challenges we faced at Practo was that we spread so thin. And look at us. We had performance management, we have Coffee Connect. And ultimately, it should have been like today, it's one of our very big moves. When we are compared against any OKR tool, we beat them because we have a full. But we shouldn't have at the start. At this stage, we should not have. We should have had that focus. So it's difficult for us. But if we have one moat, it's just about this thing. We focus on helping startups, especially hyper-growth startups, track their goals in a magically easy. As long as we do that, that's what remains on. That's why integrations becomes very important for it. That's why business reviews become very important for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the integration product is not easy to replicate because there are so many integrations to do and to test each one, make sure it is like that magical experience. That would be tough for a newcomer to replicate.
And I just add to that one point that, again, integration is still, I would say, people, at least I know some of the HRMS companies who are attempting, because at least in integration, you know what to do. You know, I have to integrate with a Google Sheet, and so I can do it. I think that the place there, which is again a bigger problem to solve, or a very tough problem, is reviews, because you can integrate with all the software in the world, but if nobody looks at goals, what's the point of integration? And where do people look at goals? They look at goals in the meeting, and that's a tough meeting. That's a really tough. Very, very tough problem, because this meeting is a free flow, crazy meeting, happens on a very, very unstructured way. Some do it on a Google Doc, some do it on a PPT, some do it on a dashboard. In fact, majority of the people, how the meeting happens? The founder sits, every department come, and every department come their own tool. Some do it. Now you need to go and structure that meeting. It will be very difficult for an HRIS system or a performance management system to even look at this problem. So that might be another sort of L1 answer of your moat that becomes for us.
So how does the meeting product work in Peoplebox? Is it like say you have on Canva where you can just put elements and then go to presenter mode, like something like that?
Something like that. So you make, what the most important thing, if you look at, right, that there are three aspects in a business review meeting. Okay. There is data, there is narratives, and there is Q&A. Can you make all of these things pluggable? Okay. Can you make sure, and at least that's what people try to do it on a PPT with a lot of disadvantages. Can you make it so pluggable that one click, because my goals are already there, notes are already been taken, comments are already there, action items are already. Can you make all of these things pluggable? That's the, how we want to go and disrupt it.
Got it. Okay. So what kind of startups do you look at? Like, what is the size? 100 employees, 500 employees? Like
typically 100 to say, now we have, many thousand plus as well. So now, of course, it's growing. We have had, Udaan as our customer, which is 4,000. We have Exotel, which is 1,000. We have Dunzo, which is 1,000 plus. But if I were to go and put our sweet spot, it's this 100 to 1,000, and even more. Most of our customers are 100 to say 500-600.
I saw your pricing was about $5 to $10, in that range, right? Yeah. So isn't it pretty expensive for like a Udaan with so many, or is there like a volume pricing also?
No, certainly we have a volume pricing. We also have a pricing for India. So one thing is we have today almost 500 companies using us in 60 plus countries. So we have customers all across the world. We have a company, Riyadh, which is a London stock exchange company. We have companies sort of all over the world. So our pricing is, of course, a global pricing. But at Mars, we do give, of course, some discounting. And we also have when like, especially for the larger employees as they go, we do some Indian price.
But would Udaan actually buy a license for each employee? Like,
So Udaan actually used us for Coffee Connect when Amod was there. Amod was very, very sort of passionate about the whole peers connect and all that. Everybody was working from home. So they used our Coffee Connect product for this, like just for the engineering team. And they did a good pricing. They didn't like Udaan is a well-funded company. So, but of course, like when we go to the likes of say Dunzos and Exotel, which is 1,000 plus, there is some.
do they buy for everybody? Is it something? I mean, it wouldn't work if you don't buy for everyone, right?
Again, depends on what feature do you want to use. But let's take OKR for example. Like if you use Peoplebox for your performance management and employee engagement, it has to be for everybody because you're gonna take a survey from all your employees. You're gonna do a performance. But even for the OKR bit, right? What is the purpose of OKRs? The purpose of OKR is to communicate what is our focus. If your employees, including your interns, doesn't have the access to what our company objectives is, then what's the point of keeping OKR? Leadership के लिए थोड़े ना करे. Leadership को तो पता होता है. At least strategy तो पता होती है. वो बात अलग है कि they forget about the prioritization and they forget about the tracking. But it's उन्हें पता होती है, right? So there was this very famous research which was done, which says that around 86% of the people employees did not know what their company's strategy was. Okay. And there was another one where in London, in the non-corona time when everybody was going to office, they took the top leadership and asked them, what are the top 3 priorities of the company? Okay. And this is the time when this is top leadership going to office every day. And I think around 60% of the leader could not speak the common single one. Forget about the number top 3. So, which is why visibility is a very important thing. And when people use OKRs, and we always recommend whether you set OKR for every person or not, that's a separate thing. Okay. But you make sure that everybody has an access to it.
Yeah, okay. So what is your current revenue, like ARR, MRR, whatever you track? Like,
I think that's not public that, but I would go and say that we have grown pretty significantly or pretty good in the last, say, 6 months, and primarily because of the whole focus and finding out this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What is the goal you're targeting in terms of like monthly run rate? Like say by 2024 or whatever, like 1 or 2 years down the line, like.
I would say one of our aim is to sort of hit a 10 million by end of next year. That's something we want to go and believe. And it's not that it has not happened. I think the sector is very hot. COVID has really given sort of boost to it. It has its tailwinds, and primarily because of when teams are distributed, when they're remote. Misalignment is bigger problem. The lack of visibility, the lack of misalignment, it's hard. Second thing I would say is that thanks to the likes of Bhavin, Google, and a lot of other startups, they have made OKRs a very, very common thing. In fact, VC companies also have a very good role to play here. What has worked for others is, so it's again a very, very, I would say, hot market today. And with
Is this like a 10x growth target? Like have you crossed 1 million or like?
Not yet, but so
Okay,
more
so it's like the 10x, more than 10.
But we are talking about 2 years, right? Not 1 year or so.
So tell me about the competition that you have right now. Who are the other companies in this space who are also like offering a similar service? And what is your differentiation vis-a-vis the competitors?
Awesome. I think this is a good question, and it's a very interesting question. Okay, because our number one competitor is Google. Seriously, like think about it, right? Yeah, no, everything. So when we say that we have a goals tracking software or an OKR tracking software, people say we do it on a Google Sheet. When we say that we have a one-on-one software, people say we do it on a Google Doc. When we say that we have an employee engagement software, people say we do it on Google Forms. So I think majority of the time when we go into a company, we replace Google. Okay, either it's a mix of Google Sheet, Google Form, and Google Doc. Okay. Now, when we talk about softwares, especially SaaS software, we get competition from 3 different categories of software. One is HRIS system. So all the
like a Darwin box.
they have some module of an OKR or a performance management. Now, of course, where we go on with it, we go very deep into product and, very, very different UI. Integrations become very good. For example, one of our most loved feature these days, which is our very newest feature, is performance reviews in Slack. You can run your entire performance review cycle from self-review, 360-degree review, everything in Slack without even leaving that, So now for our Darwin box to even focus on this much, this is sort of a bit difficult, or like this is not their core. This is not their focus, The second sort of a competition we get it from is from a full-fledged performance management tool, or like in US, I would say there are the likes of all these Lattice and BetterWorks and all that, who again, but their focus also remains on performance reviews, which is a once or twice a year exercise. And they are very focused toward, like they are primarily solving the HR pain area. Okay. No, not much of the founders.
They would not have those integrations to magically track.
Yeah, we'll have some because it's now more of a hygiene, but that's not it. And the third, and I think a place where we get the most compared with are dedicated OKR softwares. Okay, work core is like OKR. So, Workboard is one. Then there is this company I spoke about, Ali, which just recently got acquired by Microsoft. So these are these just focused OKR tools. Now, whether we can call it, in irony or in Hindi, there is a word called Vidambana. We need dedicated OKR software. We need dedicated OKR software because we have other features. We need full-fledged performance management software because our OKR tool is very good. So somehow we have been able to sort of, get the best out of it. And the primarily because now I know that in the hindsight, I would have never gone and done that. I would have preferred not to do it. But we spent so much time in building this entire suite of product that we ended up building. Now, again, our forte, because me and Alavu, we both have been product guys, have built our startup. We focus a lot on product. Now, there are companies there who are consulting first companies. We become a product first company. So for us, everything is about how do we make it so easy to use. So I give you a simple example, right? If you want to go and update your goal, you get a notification, say on a Tuesday morning, where are you with this? If you have not integrated, can you even do it in the Slack itself? So when people use our product, right, especially in trials, I was just speaking to one of the founders and he said that I tried some 12 OKR software and I use yours and give it to the team. And in simple word, he said, team ne bola, ye chamka. It was that tool that we did not need to have any learning curve, or we do not have any complexity. So that becomes our number. But the second bit, I think, which we have realized a lot is our hand-holding support. We provide deep, I'm also I like to go and give sessions about OKRs. How do you do that? Swiggy's examples and all that. That what are the best ways? A lot of time people so think about it, right? Giving a survey tool is one thing. Telling what to ask is another thing. Giving a performance review is one thing. But doing how to do performance review to where you should do is and we focus a lot on this customer support and success. In handhold in every journey of whatever you are doing, right from OKRs drafting to alignment to building a review cadence to building OKR champions and all that. So that's another very, very important.
Have you built this through AIs, where if somebody is putting in a goal or a key result which doesn't align, so that automated coaching in a way, or is that in the roadmap, like an AI driven coach for using OKR?
So this is a very important thing. Like I said, the first feature when we were thinking about closing the loop for us was AI coach. Okay. That's when we sort of renamed our company to Peoplebox.ai. There was another reason that it was cheap. And we tried some bit. I won't go, but like we tried. Okay. But we realized that that's not going to be the core differentiator for us. We can build it just for.
Plus, you didn't have the data for that coach to work.
And then we didn't have enough data as well. But right now, like I said, right, if at least for this moment, we see that it's so badly broken. Goals tracking and goals even creation is so badly broken in the companies that you don't really need an AI to solve that. You just need an easy. That's why I said we didn't say that we make your goals tracking effective. We said we makes your goals tracking magically easy.
If you like the Founder Thesis podcast, then do check out our other shows on subjects like marketing, technology, career advice, books, and drama. Visit thepodium.in, that is thepodium.in, for a complete list of all our shows.